We all know that archaeology can get a little messy. I mean, when you dig in the dirt, you're gonna get your hands dirty. This seems to be especially true for the site of Caral in the Norte Chico state. But in this case, I'm not referring to the excavations that have occurred there. No, no. Here, I'm referring to the incidents that have occurred to its discoverers and the feud that has spiraled into an international incident. Unfortunately, this feud has brought back to the forefront the issue of academic imperialism. On one side, we have Dr. Ruth Shady, the Peruvian archaeologist who discovered the site of Caral and has preached its importance to the world for many, many years. Due to her work on the site, many of those in the Spanish speaking world refer to the site and those surrounding it as Caral Supe. On the other side, we have Dr. Jonathan Haas and Winifred Creamer, the husband and wife team that hail from the United States. These two archaeologists helped the world further their understanding of the Caral Supe people by expanding the focus from just Caral to the surrounding regions. It is due to their work on this project that many of those in the English-speaking world refer to the region as the Norte Chico state. Hello, my name is Luis and welcome to the History of Peru YouTube channel. Today we're beginning our series on the Caral Supe people, or as you may know them, the Norte Chico state. Our story begins during the archaeological boom in Peru during the beginning of the 20th century. Even before the discovery of Machu Picchu, archaeologists had been searching Peru in hopes of finding ancient lost cities. In fact, Hiram Bingham was actually looking for the ancient lost city of Vicambamba when he stumbled upon Machu Picchu. The German archaeologist Max Jol was the first to excavate the Norte Chico region. Unfortunately, not much attention was paid to this region until Gordon Wiley and John Corbett began their excavations at Espero in the mid-1950s. Wiley and Corbett would go on to excavate and survey many other sites in the region. It was not until the mid-1970s that Michael Mosley, along with Wiley, were able to accurately date the site of Espero to the late Archaic period, which dates between 3000 BCE and 1800 BCE. It was during this time that Mosley and Wiley argued that the mounds found at this site were the result of communal work. At this point, it was clear that some group of people lived here and that it was probably well inhabited. The issue now was who had the money or the time to excavate it. 1987 saw the likes of Frederick Engel and Elizabeth Sechenter publish their work on the Supe Valley, and for the first time, identifying the set of sites known as Chupasigaro Grande. If that name doesn't sound familiar, don't worry about it, no one calls it that anymore. It now has a different name, the Great City of Caral. In his paper on the site, Engel noted the interesting finds he made, but concluded that he didn't have the time to fully excavate the area. In 1994, Dr. Ruth Shady looked to these previous surveys done by other archaeologists before she began her work at Caral. Look, we can't talk about the Norte Chico without understanding who Dr. Ruth Shady is. Her love for her country began at an early age. Her father would often take her to visit ancient ruins and would gift her a big stack of history books for every birthday. If you're anything like me, that sounds like a dream come true. Ruth would go on to study at San Marcos University and would end up getting 2 doctorates, one in anthropology and one in archaeology. Dr. Shady is known as a hard-headed and tough woman. She is also believed to be friends with Elaine Carp de Toledo, whose husband was recently arrested for his role in a high-profile corruption scandal during his presidency. At the age of 43, Dr. Shady began her work on Project Caral. Working diligently and with a shoestring budget, Dr. Shady began her excavations at Caral with undergrad students. Seemingly single-handedly, Dr. Shady was able to beat back local pressure and keep these excavations alive. She did all this with barely any funding. In the first years of the excavation, many of these students would get sick due to the working conditions of the site and its remoteness from any civilization. Despite this, Dr. Shady kept going. She had faith that there was something important hidden under all this dirt. Slowly but surely, the site began to show its potential. Shady and her team found pyramids that they were able to date to 2500 BCE. Now, as the site began to gain attention, her life began to be put in danger. You see, the area around Caral is rich in minerals, and Peru, maybe more so than some other countries, relies heavily on mineral extract. According to the World Bank, mining makes up about 10% of Peru's annual GDP. It is likely due to this that unknown people began attacking the site, hoping to not only damage the site itself, but to bring harm to its workers. Dr. Shady has been robbed, assaulted, and even shot at during this excavation. Nevertheless, she carried on. In studying the construction techniques of the people of Caral, Dr. Shady developed her shikar bag theory. The issue was, she wasn't able to actually date these shikar bags. In order to help prove this theory, she would need help being able to date the shikar bags. So, what am I even talking about? Well, shikar bags are bags that were made from long grass commonly known as shikra. These bags would be later filled with boulders and would be packed into the trenches to hold up the retaining walls. Unfortunately, due to her lack of funding, Dr. Shady was unable to get the resources needed to accurately date the shikar bags. After years of trying to get additional funding and preaching the importance of her discovery, her cries for help were finally heeded. In the year 2000, Shady invited Haas and Creamer to the site of Caral, along with the funding that came with them. In 2001, the trio published an article in the Science Journal titled Dating Caral, a pre-ceramic site in the Supe Valley on the central coast of Peru. As stated in the article's title, the result was that Shady was able to accurately date the site and the shikar bags. Now we will discuss this paper more thoroughly in an upcoming video covering the various sites of Caral, but for now, I will provide an overview. Haas and Creamer helped Shady date the site to around 2627 BCE to 1977 BCE. The authors also noted that the site was built in phases and that the shikar bags that the people of Caral relied for wall filling were transported to the site and were not local. These bags were dated between 2627 BCE and 2020 BCE. As evidence of the site's complexity, the paper also notes that the people of the site relied on irrigation agriculture to feed its inhabitants. It is again quite clear that the people who studied the site knew that this site would be important. The paper also discusses the platform mounds and the sunken circular plazas that were distinct features of the site. The paper notes that other sites in the region also carried these distinct features, thus implying early on that this site was merely part of a larger shared culture. In the end, I think Dr. Shady was really grateful for the husband and wife team for allowing her to use their technology to help date the finds. Haas and Creamer brought with them funding from the National Geographic Society, the Museum of Natural History, and the technology from Northern Illinois University. This feud began after the team published their findings. When the article was picked up by American media, many made the mistake of giving Haas and Creamer the credit for dating Caral. In fact, as you can see on the screen, many don't even mention Dr. Shady. A few newspapers correctly identified Dr. Shady as the lead archaeologist, but many diminished her role as more of that of a local guide. This unintended slight really angered Dr. Shady. Now, to their credit, Haas and Creamer reached out to their respective institutions and asked for a revised press release that would correctly identify Dr. Shady as the lead archaeologist. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The relationship between Shady and Haas and Creamer was forever burned, but the feud was just beginning. In 2002, Haas and Creamer were granted permits by the Peruvian government in order to begin their excavations near Caral. Out of respect for Dr. Shady, the husband and wife team refused to go into the Supe Valley and instead focused on the surrounding valleys. Haas and Creamer thus began operating a more professional dig than Dr. Shady had ever been able to fund. The husband and wife team brought with them state-of-the-art equipment from the Field Museum in Chicago, where Dr. Haas was a curator. In addition to their equipment, Haas and Creamer were able to hire graduate students to help with the dig and catalog artifacts. Among these graduate students was Alvaro Ruiz, a rising star at San Marcos who had helped Shady at Caral. Shady was also his godmother. Now the feud turned personal. Soon, Haas and Creamer's technology started to pay off. Thanks to their funding, the husband and wife team were able to identify various additional Caral-era sites. Haas, Creamer, and Ruiz subsequently published an article arguing that Caral was part of a large civilized society that spanned multiple valleys. They would go on to name the civilization the Norte Chico state. Their argument that Caral was simply a part of a larger civilization was seen as a shot at Shady, who had originally argued that Caral was the capital and cultural center of the region. Shady saw this publication as a direct attack against her years of work in the field and believed that Haas and Kramer were attempting to piggyback on her previous work and pass it off as their own in order to siphon funding from her ongoing projects. Shady decided to fight back against these perceived slights. Shady published a statement that said, Haas and Kramer are violating not only my intellectual rights as an archaeologist, but also the rights of a Peruvian research project whose authorship they intend to expropriate. In this statement, Shady also contends that the conclusion made by Haas and Kramer was not original and was one that she had made previously. Even though Shady argued that Caral was the capital of the region, she was well aware of the fact that there was various other sites that were associated with Caral. Shady published complaints against Haas and Kramer and alleged that they believed that Peruvian archaeologists were beneath them and that their standards and practices were not as professional as those of the Americans. Shady had the support of the Peruvian people and its government. Soon, it seemed like the whole country turned against Haas and Kramer. Complaints were filed with the American ambassador to Peru. The local governments in which Haas and Kramer conducted their excavations issued statements condemning their underhanded tactics. Haas later stated that he believed Shady was trying to drive him and his wife out of Peru. He argued that Shady believes that additional findings may end up minimizing the importance of Shady's site at Caral. The end result of this feud is that Shady now has the best funded dig in Peruvian history. Caral has become a tourist attraction while maintaining continual digs at the site. The feud stemming from the discovery of Caral is more of an issue of academic imperialism. According to the sociologist Said Hussein Alatas, intellectual imperialism is the domination of one people by another in their world of thinking. Intellectual imperialism is usually an effect of actual direct imperialism, or is an effect of indirect domination arising out of imperialism. He goes on to write that, similarly, it can be said that in the post-colonial period, what we have is academic neo-imperialism, or academic neo-colonialism, as the West monopolized the control of and influence over the nature of social scientific knowledge remain intact even though political independence has been achieved. Since Hiram Bingham's discovery of Machu Picchu, many Peruvian archaeologists have been pushed out of the spotlight in favor of the American teams that have more funding. In fact, if you've seen my other videos, many of the archaeologists that I discuss are American. This is not to say the Peruvians are the only ones who should be allowed to dig in Peru, nor am I arguing that only Peruvians should be recognized for their finds. What I am arguing for is fair and equal acknowledgement by the media of the various archaeologists who have helped in uncovering Peru's magnificent history. To put it simply, translation exists, subtitles exist. Interview the people who do the work, not just those you understand. There are many instances in the history of archaeology where a local archaeologist has been viewed as more of a guide than as a colleague, and are relegated to becoming a footnote in history. Peru has worked hard to improve their archaeological standards and practices since their less than ideal practices in the early 1900s. These days, Peruvian archaeologists are able to conduct their own digs with the help of the Peruvian government and their focus on preserving national history. Now, is the Peruvian government funding as many digs as I would like? Of course not. But the digs that are funded have been able to uncover some amazing finds. This renewed pride in Peruvian archaeology is thanks to people like Dr. Ruth Shady. She refused to be pushed aside. She fought for her time in the limelight. Ultimately, I think it's important for these archaeologists to work together to bring these important sites to light. There is a show on Disney Plus that I love watching. It's called Lost Cities with Albert Lin. In this series, we follow the adventurer as he helps bring the resources of National Geographic to remote areas in the world in order to uncover lost cities. I have really appreciated the way in which this series focuses on the on-the-ground archaeologists that have spent years and years uncovering these sites. The issue that these archaeologists run into ultimately is the profitability of these sites. Unfortunately, with the capitalistic society we live in, if there's not a way to turn these sites into tourist attractions, there will not be much funding available. What we see from the National Geographic team is a desire to help these archaeologists with technology and funding. One of the biggest ways they're able to assist is through their LiDAR technology. This technology has helped in making some major discoveries, especially in sites with thick vegetation, such as those throughout Central and South America. Look, I may have an incorrect read on the situation, but based on the papers that I have read about the sites associated with National Geographic funding, many of these archaeologists have noted that thanks to their help, they're able to better plan the future. The result being, archaeologists throughout Central and South America were able to put their funding towards more important things. In the end, I do want to be clear that I am not on either side. I think, unfortunately, this whole feud was a result of misunderstandings and miscommunication. I don't think Haas and Kramer purposely slighted Dr. Shady. I do not think they were racist, nor do I think they were intentionally engaging in academic imperialism. I think American media chose to focus, incorrectly, on the people they knew. I am also not naive. I think Dr. Shady did not get into the position she is in by being passive. I think Dr. Shady saw the situation unfolding and correctly gamed out the best possible outcome for her. Dr. Shady knew that by positioning herself as the victim, she could get additional sympathy and support from the Peruvian government. I mean, after all, who doesn't love a local hero? Lastly, going forward, I'm going to refer to the people of the region solely as the Norte Chico. This is not necessarily an endorsement of Haas and Kramer. Since this is an English-speaking channel, and the majority of my content is viewed by English speakers, I need to ensure that I use their terminology. That being said, I do personally like the Norte Chico name better, as it seems more correct. It feels silly to call this civilization the Caral Supe, since it also covers 2 additional valleys. That is all for today. In our next video, we will discuss what the Norte Chico state was, its social structure, the practices and religious beliefs of the people, and how they built the first complex society in South America. But that is not all. Our last video of the series will explore the various sites of the Norte Chico state. This includes Espero, Caral, and Benucol, which recently had some amazing discoveries. That video will be extra long, so make sure you don't miss it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these videos. If you liked what you saw today and you felt like you learned a little something, make sure to leave a like or comment on the video. It tells the algorithm that this video is worth recommending to other people. Anyways, that's all I got to say. Bye bye.